everyone. So my name is Kelly Slack, and I am doing a series of sock videos in the Wool and Fiber Arts group this month for Socktober. And our first video today is going to be covering choosing a yarn, but the reason that I am here is that I was invited to guest teach by Pearly Shell Fiber Arts. And a little bit about me, I am the co-owner of Black Sheep Fiber Emporium with Tina Johnston. I have a couple of master's degrees in teaching. I love to teach. I am the self-published author of Hoppy Feet, which is all about socks, and Froth and Foam, which is all about lace. And I've made over 100 pairs of socks, and while I don't know everything, I certainly know a lot. My videos are brought to you by 3 sponsors. That's Black Sheep Fiber Emporium, me at Kelly Slack Designs, and Heather at Pearly Shell. So make sure that you are showing our lovely sponsors your love this month. And don't forget to follow us on all of the fun social media places at Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. Because, hey, just gotta have all those accounts now, don't we? All right, let's get right into the meat of things today. Sock yarn. One of the most important things that you can learn about sock yarn is what fiber blend you are going to choose. So merino may sound like a really fantastic yarn, and it is, but it's also one of the softer wools, which means that it's going to wear out faster, and you're going to have to darn your socks. So here's one of my socks. This is a lovely soft merino. It's very soft, but because it's so soft, it wore out much faster, and I had to darn it. When it comes to looking at your different fibers, you know, you may think, oh, I want to use my hand spun, and I'll tell you how you can do that, but you can't use just any hand spun. And you may think, oh, I'd like to use cotton, right? Cotton sounds fun. And again, cotton can be used, but there's a trick to it. And again, you might think, hey, merino sounds fabulous. I'm going to use merino, but you may not want to use pure merino for socks unless you've prepped it a certain way. And we'll talk about that again in a little bit. And then, hey, how about Casbah? This is nice stuff. This is merino, cashmere, and nylon, I believe. Yes, this is some soft stuff, but may not be quite the best fit for socks. The nylon does help, and we'll talk about that in a minute as well. Another one, not quite as good for socks, silk. A little silk is a good thing. A lot of silk isn't great for socks, and we'll talk about that again in a minute. So what should we be using for socks? You should be looking for a sock yarn that has a tighter twist. You should be looking for a sock yarn that has a little more body. You should be looking for a sock yarn fiber blend. So you'll want to look for maybe a sock yarn that has a little bit of nylon in it, that has a little bit of silk in it, that maybe is a down sheep breed, as we were seeing on the Wool and Fiber Arts group earlier today, or is also one like a blue-faced Leicester. So the blue-faced Leicesters have great fleece for socks. It's springy and it's strong and it works great for socks, just like the down breeds. So we all want soft socks, but you have to remember that you have to sort of balance how soft your yarn is versus how often you want to put a hole in your sock. So there's a little bit of a juggling act there. And it's not like I haven't clearly made merino socks, because I did. And I wear them and I love them and they're super soft. But they do wear through faster and they pill. See, there's lovely, lovely pills on the back of my socks. And I actually have, this is an entire bag of socks that need to be darned. And we'll be talking about darning in a later video. But when you are looking for socks, you want to look for harder wearing socks that aren't going to develop holes. And I'm really hard on 2 spots on my socks. I'm hard at the ball of my foot, and I'm really hard back here at the base of my heel, which that one doesn't have a bad wear spot, but some of my socks do. I don't have one available. Anyway, so when you're looking for a fiber blend, if you want to use cotton, there are some fabulous cotton blends out there. I think it's Haiku Kobasi has cotton in it. It's a nice vegetable fiber. It has silk in it, so if you are trying to avoid silk and animal fibers of that nature, just, you know, throwing that out there. But it does allow you to use a cotton yarn to make socks. Another option is, this is Kokomo Yarns Guilin. It's a bamboo, merino, and nylon. So the bamboo and the nylon lend its strength. The bamboo also gives it some softness, and the merino gives it some softness. And it allows you to do socks that have a little bit of a vegetable content. That's not to say you can't make pure cotton socks. You definitely can. We wear cotton socks all the time, but the cotton socks that we wear usually have some kind of elastic with them, because cotton, if you don't know, doesn't have much memory. And so the cotton stretches out as you wear it if it's pure cotton, and it sags down your foot. And that's just not happy. That's not happy. We don't want socks that wear themselves down your foot throughout the day. We want socks that stay put, and we'll talk about how to do that in my series as well. If you are planning to spin, for your socks, this, while very pretty, would not make very good socks. It's much too soft. It's a woolen prep, so it's much more open. It is a woolen spun, so it's much more open. And it isn't going to wear very hard, and I will wear big holes in my socks if I decide to make socks out of this. So if you want to spin for your socks, some of the keys to this are to make sure that you start with a worsted prep and spin worsted. And why is that? It's because it closes and locks down all of those fibers so that you don't have those big puffy pockets in between. And when that happens, it helps to keep the fibers aligned. It means there's less friction. When there's less friction, it means it can't wear as easily, which means you don't get holes as easily. So that's kind of the idea behind, you know, woolen versus worsted and how to use those different preps. Now, you can spin a woolen prepped roving worsted. I know that's very confusing. And it can be used for socks, but you just have to be very conscious of what you're doing and why you're doing it if you are spinning for socks. There's my caveat. And I am not the world's best spinner. I enjoy it, but I'm not the world's best spinner. But I am sure that Heather could tell us a lot more about that, and you can ask her all the questions you want. See, I just gave her permission to answer them. All right. Ply. So when we're looking at ply for socks, we want at least a 2-ply. A single is not going to do what we need. A single doesn't have enough of that body. It'll fall apart. There's not enough, what's the word that I want? There's not enough twist that it's holding the fibers together to lock it into place, to make sure that we don't have that friction, and you're going to get holes. So don't use a single. We want at least a 2-ply or a 3-ply. You can use more than that, but a 2 or a 3-ply when well done will be just fine. Let's talk about size before I forget, and then I'll wander back to some of the other things that I've said. So with size, you can definitely make socks out of lace weight yarn. You can. More power to you. It's not the thing that I want to do. I love knitting. I love lace weight yarn. I don't want to make lace weight socks. I just don't. Most people are going to choose something in a fingering weight. So that is something, this is a nice fingering weight. Something about yay big. Nice fingering weight. This one, nice fingering weight. You could choose something a little bit thicker. You could choose more of a sport weight. I think this one might be a DK. It's a cotton, but let's check. Well, no, that is more of a sport weight. So there's more of a sport weight, just a little bit fatter. Fingering weight, sport weight, super popular. You can definitely use worsted to make socks. Worsted weight socks are great for things like boot socks. They're great for slippers around the house. Worsted weight and bulky are nice for making knitted and then felted slippers. Fabulous for that. They do a great job. For something like that, you might want to use a little softer wool. You want something that is going to felt together. So you don't want to use like a Lincoln long wool. Don't want to do that. You don't get quite as much felting off of that, right? A little different wool structure. And you wouldn't want to use cotton because your cotton's not going to felt. But you could definitely use an alpaca blend. You could use a merino blend. You could use rambouillet. You could use CBM. Any of the wools that are nice and soft that are going to felt, you could definitely use those for worsted weight socks, to do boot socks, or to make house socks, socks that are going to be like I mean, you want your feet to fit really well in your boots, so you'd want your boot socks to fit really well too, so they aren't going to have as much friction. That's another thing. If your shoes don't fit you well, you're going to have more wear on your socks. And you're going to have more holes in your socks. Holes in your socks aren't necessarily a bad thing, they happen. That means that you've loved your sock. That means that you have worn it a lot and you've enjoyed your socks. So holes aren't necessarily a bad thing. And I do have a video planned on how to darn. We'll be doing that later on. If you need to get to that right away, I do have a video on my Kelly Slack Designs YouTube channel, and we've also put that video on the Black Sheep Fiber Emporium page. I have done darning there, both on YouTube and the Black Sheep Facebook page. So there's various ways that you can get to a darning video right away if you need to darn your socks now. And clearly, I have a pile of socks that need to be darned. But I usually save this for the winter and I do it in front of the TV. So that's my little tip, is that I do it in front of the TV. And the key to darning is that you actually want to try to catch a sock before it actually forms a hole, like this one, so that you can just duplicate stitch reinforce it, instead of having an actual hole where you have to weave around it. And you can see this one is starting to wear through on the side, so I should have come a little further out in my patching. So, things you learn. I learn all the time. I don't know everything, but I do know a lot. And I like to keep learning every day. Let's see, what else do I need to tell you about choosing a yarn? There are lots of fabulous yarns out there. You don't have to do a superwash. You do not have to have superwash yarn. You can choose to use a superwash yarn. You can choose to put it through the washer and many times the dryer, but you don't have to. You can just... and actually, I put even I have a top loading washer, I should preface that. I do put my non-superwash socks in my washer on delicate, and I wash them, but I always hang all of my socks to dry, even if they are superwash. I go ahead and I just hang them to dry. I think that that's better for the sock, and it helps to keep the sock from wearing through as fast, because we'll talk about care and washing as well in one of the videos. So, you can choose any sock yarn that trips your fancy. Socks That Rock is one of my personal favorites. I love this. Lilliput is also a personal favorite. Love this. Heather, she dyes some beautiful yarn as well at Pearly Shell. She's got some fabulous, I believe it's merino, yak, and nylon. And yes, I would use them for socks. You are going to see more holes. It is going to wear through faster, but they'll be lovely while they're on your feet and they'll feel really good. So choose a sock yarn that makes you happy. If you want, you could do 100% wool. I love this tweed. This is the Studio Donegal Darny. It's a fingering weight, lovely stuff, knits beautifully. Another thing to think about is the gauge at which you knit your socks. We'll be talking about gauge in the next video. But the short version is you want to make sure that your gauge is tighter, because again, we don't want that friction to occur, because we don't want to make holes. So you want to make sure that when you are looking at your sock yarn, when you are choosing your sock yarn, that you are thinking about your fiber and the fiber content, the ply, the twist, and the size. So you want to look at all of those things to make sure that you are getting a great yarn for your needs. And everyone's needs are going to be a little bit different. So you just need to make sure that you take into consideration all of those things for your personal needs. As we go through this series of videos, you'll hear me talk a lot about your needs, because I'm not here to dictate a pattern. I'm not here to tell you a certain style. I'm not here to tell you exactly what yarn to use. I want you to go on your own sock journey with me and find the things that fit your needs. So that's what I'm going to do in the next few days. I have 14 more videos to do, and hopefully we will have a fabulous time doing that. Remember that I am here courtesy of Black Sheep Fiber Emporium, which I do co-own, Kelly Slack Designs, and Pearly Shell Fiber. So make sure that you give them some love and tell them that you appreciate me coming on and doing these videos, because I know I am going to have a blast talking about socks with all of you. So until next time, take care, and I'll see you then.